In the vast Chihuahuan Desert of northern Mexico lies a 50 square kilometer area where radio waves simply cease to exist, compasses spin wildly, and electronic devices fail without explanation. This is the zone of silence, or zona del silencio, where the laws of physics seem to break down and visitors report encounters with beings that shouldn't exist. What makes this place truly terrifying isn't just the electronic anomalies, it's the Mexican government's desperate attempts to keep people away from an area that may be serving as a landing zone for craft from another world. The Zone of Silence is located in the Mapimid Biosphere Reserve, a desolate stretch of desert that spans the borders of 3 Mexican states: Durango, Chihuahua, and Coahuila. The area appears unremarkable. Rolling hills covered with sparse desert vegetation, dry arroyos, and endless expanses of rocky terrain. But this ordinary-looking landscape conceals phenomena that have baffled scientists and attracted the attention of researchers from around the world for over half a century. The first documented evidence of the zone's unusual properties came in 1970 when an American Athena rocket launched from Green River, Utah, malfunctioned during flight and crashed in the Mexican desert. The rocket had been carrying radioactive materials for research purposes, and when U.S. and New Mexican recovery teams arrived to locate the wreckage, they discovered that their radio communications equipment stopped working the moment they entered a specific area of the desert. The recovery operation, which should have taken days, stretched into weeks as search teams struggled to coordinate their efforts without radio contact. GPS systems malfunctioned, giving impossible readings or failing entirely. Compasses spun randomly, making navigation extremely difficult. Most disturbing, team members reported that their watches ran at different speeds depending on where they stood in the desert, with some timepieces gaining or losing hours without explanation. When the rocket wreckage was finally located, investigators found that it had landed in the exact center of what locals had long known as a cursed area. The indigenous people of the region had avoided this part of the desert for generations, calling it the place where the sky burns, and claiming that spirits lived there who could steal voices and trap travelers in endless circle. The American recovery team's experiences in the Zone of Silence led to a classified joint investigation between U.S. and Mexican authorities. Scientists from both countries conducted extensive tests to understand why electronic equipment failed so consistently in the area. What they discovered challenged fundamental assumptions about electromagnetic radiation and the behavior of radio waves in Earth's atmosphere. Standard radio frequencies that worked perfectly elsewhere would simply disappear when transmitted from within the zone. Long-range communications became impossible, and even short-range radios had severely limited range. Television and AM radio signals from distant cities could not penetrate the area, creating a bubble of electromagnetic silence in the middle of the desert. Most puzzling, the effect seemed to have definite boundaries. Equipment would work perfectly until crossing an invisible line, then fail completely. The scientific team's findings were classified, but leaked documents revealed that the zone's properties couldn't be explained by any known natural phenomena. The area showed no unusual mineral deposits that might interfere with radio waves, no underground magnetic anomalies, and no atmospheric conditions that could account for the electromagnetic effect. It was as if some unknown force was actively blocking electronic communications from functioning in that specific location. Local ranchers and desert dwellers had stories about the Zone of Silence that went far beyond mere radio interference. They described encounters with strange lights that would appear at night, moving in patterns that suggested intelligent control. These lights would hover silently above the desert floor, sometimes forming geometric shapes before disappearing without warning. Witnesses reported that the lights seemed curious about human activity, following vehicles at a distance and observing camps from afar. Even more disturbing were accounts of encounters with humanoid beings in the zone. Multiple witnesses described meeting tall, blonde individuals wearing unusual clothing who would appear suddenly on desert roads and ask for water. These beings spoke perfect Spanish and seemed knowledgeable about local geography, but there were subtle wrongness about them. Their skin had an unusual pallor, their eyes were larger than normal, and they moved with a strange, fluid grace that didn't seem entirely human. The most detailed encounter occurred in 1976 when a local ranch family, the Villegas, were driving through the zone when their truck broke down. As they waited for help, 3 tall strangers approached their vehicle and offered assistance. The strangers examined the truck's engine and quickly identified the problem, fixing it with techniques that the ranchers didn't recognize. When the family tried to thank them and offer payment, the strangers politely declined and walked away into the desert, disappearing from sight despite the flat open terrain. What made the Villegas encounter particularly unsettling was that the strangers had addressed each family member by name, despite having never met them before. They also demonstrated detailed knowledge about the local area, including information about water sources and safe routes that wasn't widely known. Most disturbing, photographs taken during the encounter showed strange distortions around the 3 figures, as if they weren't entirely solid. The Mexican government's response to reports about the zone of silence has been to downplay its significance, while quietly restricting access to the area. The zone was officially designated as a biosphere reserve in 1979, ostensibly to protect desert wildlife, but this designation came with strict regulations that limit scientific research and prohibit unauthorized visitors from entering the most sensitive area. Government scientists have conducted studies in the zone, but their findings are classified under national security provision. What has been revealed publicly is that the area shows unusual levels of cosmic radiation, higher concentrations of meteoric debris than surrounding regions, and electromagnetic anomalies that can't be explained by conventional science. Some researchers have theorized that the zone sits on top of a massive metallic deposit deep underground, but geological surveys have found no evidence of such formation. More controversial are reports that the Mexican military has been quietly monitoring the zone for decades, using it as a testing ground for experimental aircraft and electronic warfare systems. Witnesses have reported seeing unmarked military vehicles in the area, and observing aircraft that don't match any known designs. Some researchers believe that the zone's electromagnetic properties make it an ideal location for testing stealth technology and advanced propulsion systems. The most dramatic incident in the zone of silence occurred in 1985, when a commercial airliner flying over the area experienced total electrical failure and was forced to make an emergency landing in the desert. All 27 passengers and crew survived the landing, but their rescue was complicated by the fact that the aircraft's emergency beacon couldn't transmit from the crash site. When rescue teams finally located the plane, they found that all electronic systems had been permanently damaged by some form of electromagnetic pulse. Investigators examining the aircraft discovered that the damage patterns were unlike anything they had seen before. Circuit boards showed evidence of exposure to extremely high-frequency electromagnetic radiation, but there was no known source of such energy in the area. Most puzzling, the damage occurred in a pattern that suggested the electromagnetic pulse had originated from beneath the aircraft, as if something underground had targeted the plane specifically. The airline incident led to the establishment of a no-fly zone over the most sensitive part of the zone of silence, and commercial aircraft are now required to maintain specific altitude and distance restrictions when passing over the area. Military aircraft are exempt from these restrictions, leading to speculation that they use different navigation systems that aren't affected by the zone's electromagnetic property. Recent investigations using satellite imagery have revealed unusual surface features in the zone of silence that weren't visible in earlier surveys. These include perfectly circular areas where vegetation grows differently than in surrounding regions, geometric patterns that appear to be artificial, and what looks like landing strips or cleared areas that show regular maintenance despite the remote location. Ground-penetrating radar studies conducted by university researchers have detected large underground structures in the zone, but attempts to excavate these formations have been blocked by government authorities. The researchers were told that their work posed a threat to the delicate desert ecosystem, but critics point out that much more invasive industrial activities are permitted in other parts of the biosphere reserve. Perhaps most intriguing are reports from recent visitors who claim that the zone's electromagnetic properties are changing. Some areas that previously blocked all radio communications now allow limited transmissions, while other regions that were formerly normal have begun showing signs of electronic interference. This suggests that whatever causes the zone's unusual properties may be mobile or expand. Modern smartphone users have documented some of the zone's effects, though their devices often malfunction when they try to record video or take photographs in certain areas. GPS applications provide wildly inaccurate readings, social media posts fail to upload, and phone batteries drain at accelerated rates. Some visitors report that their devices show impossible data, timestamps from decades in the future, GPS coordinates that place them in other countries, and sensor readings that indicate they're moving at impossible speeds. The indigenous communities that live near the zone of silence continue to treat it with respect and caution, maintaining traditional beliefs about the area's supernatural property. They describe the zone as a doorway between worlds, where beings from the sky come to visit Earth and where time moves differently than in the normal world. According to their traditions, the zone has been active for thousands of years, long before modern electronic equipment existed to detect its unusual properties. Today, the zone of silence remains one of Mexico's most closely guarded secrets. While it attracts researchers and tourists interested in paranormal phenomena, access to the most sensitive areas is strictly controlled. The Mexican government continues to deny that anything unusual occurs there, but the accumulation of witness testimony, scientific evidence, and documented electromagnetic anomalies suggests that this remote desert location may be one of the most important sites for understanding phenomena that challenge our current scientific knowledge. Whether the zone of silence represents a natural electromagnetic anomaly, a testing ground for advanced technology, or something even more extraordinary, one thing is certain: this ordinary-looking patch of desert continues to confound scientists and inspire theories about the true nature of our world and our place in the universe.